I am Amit Saxena. What I'm going to present today is about PCI Express Gen 4 based NVMe SSD platform. It's a platform, it's not a specific SSD controller design. And this is something we have built using Mobiwale IPs. So I'll be talking about the design challenges one has to face whenever you are doing something which is configurable. And then how we did it by using our configurable IP components. I'll get into details. And then also we have done a couple of more subsystems. The RISC-V based IoT SoC platform we have built. And we have also done a flash characterization platform. Our focus is primarily on two verticals, the IoT as well as the SSD. These are the two platforms which we have built. And then I have just one slide about Mobiwale for some of you who may not be that aware of Mobiwale. This is the block diagram of SSD platform. The blocks you see in the yellow are the Mobiwale's components. Essentially, it has a PCI Express interface, Gen 4. It has got a PCI Express controller, GPEX, NVM controller, Unix. Then we have what we call as the media control cluster. It is again sort of a data path, which essentially has the ECC as well as the flash channel controllers. And then UMMC is a DDR controller, and ARM, of course, we are using the hard macro, the HPS, which is available in the FPGA. And we have the data path as well as the control path in this solution. This is the board you see on the left as well as the board components which are shown on the right. It's using Zynq UltraScale Plus device, which is a Gen 4 SerDes. Because it's a flash SSD platform, so we have SODIMMs, which you can see. But on the right side on the top, if you see, there is a SODIMM. That allows us to sort of use various flash. Again, since it's a configurable platform, the idea is to use different flash. So we actually do that by using SODIMM and we replace flash. So there is nothing which is required to be changed on the board. It is actually having all the components from the Mobiwale, including LDPC. And we also provide the reference firmware. As I said, and there are various flash parts one can use because of the SODIMM, and one can replace just the SODIMM. And the whole goal is that this is a reference platform. It's a very rapid prototype as well as development vehicle, because once you have all the components in place, you can pick and choose and do a lot of tests before you sort of go for the actual product in ASIC. You can add value add software on top of what we provide as a firmware. And that's the whole goal, that this is a now full subsystem. So I'll get into the design challenges. So again, the goal is to make things as flexible as possible, because we are not doing one specific SSD. We want to make sure that our customer, because we are not in the business of selling SSD, our goal is to sort of provide very close to a finished product, but customers are the ones who are going to be creating the product and selling it in the market. So it has to be very flexible, and we will get into more details as to what I mean by flexible. And the goal is that even though we have targeted it to Xilinx as a particular device, but even within Xilinx, can the design be ported into a different part number, for example, which may not be this specific part. So it has to be flexible for various technologies, Xilinx or FPGA or even ASIC. And there has to be a lot of customization possible with the individual components, because the architecture should be something which is flexible. You can pick and choose based on how many parallel threads, how many parallel channels you want to have. So the design has to be flexible. And of course, the software should be sort of API based, where customer can come in and add more to what we already have. And it should be reusable, because you want to do FPGA prototyping, you may want to do even the emulation, and before you actually go to the tape out. So most of the things should be reusable. It should not be tied up with a particular technology. So I talked about flexibility, and where the flexibility comes from, because you're talking about some of the interfaces. You're talking about PCI Express, you're talking about NVMe, flash controller, and of course the ECC. So these are the interfaces in the chip, and those interfaces or technologies themselves provide huge flexibility, or the specification has huge number of features. And you need to make sure that you have a component which can support and adopt various things. For example, if you look at the PCI Express, whether the design can support multiple virtual channels. Is SRIOV supported or not? Because PCI Express, you may want to have SRIOV solution. Bifurcation, can the controller itself be supported in a bifurcation mode? Whether you want to have a DMA in the PCI Express or you don't want to have your DMA, because NVMe might have DMA, which is more aware with the SGL or PRP. Then what type of interrupt? Whether you want to have the split spectrum SRNS or SRIS. So you have to have those flexibility built into the PCI Express controller you are building. Similarly, on the NVMe, whether you want to support multipath I/O or not, whether the controller supports it or not. One use could be without multipath I/O, the other could be with multipath I/O, and the controller has to support it. Various LBA sizes, mixed LBA, because some of the your namespaces could be one LBA size, some of the other LBAs could be different, namespaces could be other LBA size. So whether those LBA sizes are programmable or not, number of IO queues. Of course, there are vendor command support, optional command support, as well as the vendor-specific arbitration. So these are flexibility, these are defined in the specification, and you want to have a sort of a solution which supports these. The flash, again, on fee toggle, which is the interface-specific thing. Whether the controller can adopt to various technologies, that means you need to have half rate, full rate, quarter rate implementation, because you can't run at all the speeds if suppose you are doing it in FPGA. I'll go to the ECC. Again, selection between BCH or LDPC. So going to all the 3D and all the newer flash parts, you need to live with LDPC. And once you decide that you have to live with LDPC, there is again a lot more one needs to sort of have flexibility in the hardware itself in terms of code rate. And you may have to have the puncturing, padding, this is all programmable. Even allowing a user to sort of use their own LDPC metrics, because this changes the performance big time as to what is the quality of an LDPC metrics, where your LDPC controller allows basically customer to pick or select their own LDPC metrics, though we provide ours as well. And then of course the single dual core, this is something to do with throughput. And again, the decision has to be based on whether it is an area or you can run it at a higher clock. So you want to have a smaller footprint. So, but the core has to have that flexibility. Similarly, what is a soft read procedure? If you look at these, just the 4 parts, again, there is a huge features which are available when you look at it, and we need to provide this configurability in our solution, because we don't assume that the 2 customers are going to come and say, I want this code rate. So we have to have a solution where it is still usable and customer can decide what is the code rate they want to actually use for their requirement. And then you have implementation challenges. Those were more like specification related. Here, the implementation challenges is, of course, one needs to decide what goes in hardware, what goes in software. So there are some solutions where even the FTL, which is what we are doing in SSD, people want to sort of offload some of that function in hardware, whether that is possible or not. We have to sort of look at the buffering, what should be the data path width, is it flexible enough to get into FPGA, the same design, can it go to ASIC or not? Throughput balancing, this is important for some of the applications where you may want to sort of divide your throughput between, say, reads and writes, and whether you want to balance it or not. If you are doing flash, mostly you are doing read, you are more worried about read at a time and then write at a time. But if you are some applications where you want to sort of balance between read and writes, how easily you can do that with the IP you have selected. And of course, these are very big designs. Customer would be doing a lot more verification and validation at their end, because there are some interfaces. PCI Express is one, Flash is another. So we have to adopt and make sure that our solution, whatever we are doing, you can still use third-party VIPs and FIs. So all those things are again challenges as far as a configurable design is concerned. So we looked at all these things in terms of what is the configurability requirement. We looked at all the features. We have done a lot more on our side to sort of give a subsystem level design. So that means we have done a lot more design, implementation, and verification effort for the block you saw initially I showed, which has all these components stitched together. So a lot more has actually gone into verifying all these pieces together. They are not just IP level design verification. We have done a lot more to sort of meet your latency, bandwidth, and QoS requirements. So we have looked at those requirements and made sure that we meet the performance, which is achievable, of course, in an FPGA. And how we have done is, I'll have some description of major blocks. So the PCI Express controller, what we call as GPEX. So this is the block diagram of PCI Express controller. It's sort of modular architecture. If you see what is shown as the logic layer, this is what is the GPEX. It's a pipe on one side, and we have various application interface option towards the user logic on the top. It is Gen 4. It's a Gen 4 1.0 compliant solution. Various pipe modes we support, because for FPGA you want to have a 64-bit pipe so that you can run it for a Gen 4 16 gig per lane throughput. But for ASIC, 32-bit is required. So we have this flexibility. We also offer PCS for vendors who have just the PMA function. So this is a PCS which is Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4. This is also available. And then we have huge optional features. Some of them I discussed earlier, for example, SRIOV. This is something which is very useful for SSD solutions. a multipath I/O solution. So we have this. In addition, there are a lot more optional features which are supported. And then there are a lot of value-added features. These are features like the data path parity protection. This is very important for enterprise class SSD. You need to make sure that every pipeline is covered by ECC. So we do have that support. We also have some device-specific control and debug registers. So you can do a lot more with this controller. You can do loopback. You can actually do the application level traffic without even having a host to connect to. PCI Express is an asymmetric protocol, so typically you can't connect your TX to RX and assume that it's going to work because one side is supposed to behave differently, so you can't talk to yourself. So even if you try to do that, it won't work. But we have a debug mode where, assuming that you don't have the SerDes up, you can do the TX to RX loopback, for example. This is a good feature to have. Then the LDPC encoder decoder. Again, this is a huge scalable controller. It's like a compiler. We can pick and choose some of the configurable options. Those are shown here as the scalability parameters. And that allows us to sort of have a huge variation in terms of what throughput we can have, what is a single instance can support. You can vary the parity, sort of parallelism I talked about, single core, dual core, we can pick. And again, various memory access options. What it means is that I talked about LDPC matrix itself can be used by or loaded by the customer. So we provide that option. And this is the industry's, I think, the lowest power LDPC control decoder and encoder. I have some numbers here, which is taken for a 28 HPC process. But this is very scalable. So what numbers you are seeing are the end of life numbers. So the throughput numbers are end of life. Normally, the throughput is going to be, at the beginning of the life, you can say it's a 3x of the numbers you are seeing here. And then NVM Express, this is what we call as NVM UNEX, Universal NVM Express Controller. It's compliant with 1.3a. This is the latest NVM Express specification. This is UNH certified IP. So what it means is that, again, it's a standard, and the solution needs to be sort of compliant and interoperable, certified by a standard body. For NVM, if anybody is actually doing a NVM-based SSD today, they need to go and get it certified at UNH. This IP is standalone, certified by UNH. We got it certified. And the block diagram you see is for multipath I/O. That means it's an optimized solution for multipath I/O. Typically, you can do multipath I/O by instantiating NVMe controller multiple times, but this is not the case. It supports multipath I/O by having optimized solution where you can see that most of the biggest hardware block is the DMA engine, which is shared across all the ports. You are not instantiating this DMA engine multiple times. Then we have the flash controller. It's an enterprise class flash controller, and it has huge features. Again, it has the full rate, half rate, quarter rate mode. That what it means is that you can sort of port this to FPGA for a slower implementation, whereas for ASIC, you don't need to use a quarter rate. The full rate is going to work because that's going to be area efficient implementation. But what also is important or a pretty useful feature in this controller is that everything is like an independent interface. You have a control interface, then separate command, write, read, and the status interface. So there are individual interfaces, pipeline, and you have flexibility to sort of define additional commands in silicon. That is very important for flash. Because some of the flash commands, only the user will be informed by the flash vendor. And no one will know because those are very secret commands. And the controller itself should allow those commands to be executed in silicon. So we have this sequencer and the program memory where customer in silicon can define newer flash commands and execute them. This is also very important. You can't have a controller today, flash controller specifically, which you can assume to work, say 2 years from now, because there are going to be new commands which are going to be added. And of course, flash vendor is going to have their own secret command, which they will only tell a user. So this controller allows that flexibility where newer commands can be added. You can play with even the timing, and you can have on-fee as well as toggle. Both are supported. And this is the memory controller. It's a multi-port, universal multi-port memory controller, what we have. It's DFI, because all these controllers we have are digital. So this is the DFI on one side, and AXI towards the system interface. And it is a multi-port. We can have a multi-port, multiple slave interfaces based on how many masters you really want to attach this controller to. And this is, again, we can support multiple ranks. Again, architecturally, we support all the three modes: full rate, half rate, and quarter rate. So this is something we have ported to FPGA. This is something which has gone into silicon. And of course, it also supports inline ECC. This is also a pretty important feature. If you're really trying to save cost, you don't want to have a separate DDR chip just to save ECC. So typically what you do is you actually use some of the DDR region to save the ECC. That is what is inline ECC. And this controller does support inline ECC. So that was all about the Gen 4 SSD controller configurable platform. I have this slide, which is our RISC-V based IoT SoC platform. It has got the full picture of the IoT platform and also the SoC infrastructure what we have created on the left side. So as you can see, it has got a RISC-V. What we have done is we have built AXI matrix around it and have connected the third-party IPs as well as our own IPs. We have PCI Express, Rapid I/O, Ethernet, and some of the low-speed peripherals and the memory subsystem. So this is SoC platform which is available from us for our own use. We are having customer tape out using this, and this is also available for anyone else to sort of license. And this is what is also ported to this IoT platform you see. And then this is another platform. This is for flash characterization. If some of you are flash guys, you know how difficult it is to sort of characterize flash. And this is what we have built through a MATLAB interface. You do a lot more PE cycling to sort of characterize the flash, because finally your end goal is what is a real LLR lookup table, which is actually needed towards for the complete, because what you want to do is to look at the end of life requirement, and you want to make sure that you can do that analysis and figure out what is the best LLR you have to do based on how you have to program the flash to operate it. What it means is that you need to have the system and take it through a sort of a heat chamber and to sort of give it a real, because if you look at the PE cycle, you are not going to be writing the whole flash for those many thousands to really see the performance. So what you do is you look at the physics and put it in a heat chamber. So if you put it say for 8 hours, you don't need to do the PE cycle 3000 times, you need to do much less. So that's what we do. We have a heat chamber. But this is again a very, very nice way, and a lot of customers have actually licensed and used this platform to sort of characterize, and you have to do it for every flash part you have. So this is also we have, and this is the last slide. I don't have a specific Mobiwell web slide, but this actually talks about what we do as a company. So of course, we are an IP company, but now we are sort of going one level up, where we are building subsystems using our IPs. So we are creating a reference platforms, and our focus is towards two verticals, SSD and IoT. So I showed the SSD platform, which is sort of again using our own IPs and building the whole platform, and we have done the same thing for the IoT, where we have created a RISC-V based SoC solution. Though the company is 6 years old, but the technology we have is from 2000 onwards. There is a history to it, but PCI Express, Rapid I/O, and the newer IPs which we have built, they have been in the market since 2000. They are in silicon, in production for multiple years. And we always are part of the consortium. That's how we do. So we are already Gen 4, for example, in PCI Express as well as Rapid I/O. And we are going to be coming out with Gen 5, which is 0.7 version. We also are a member of NVMe, Rapid I/O, PCI SIG, HMC, and Gen Z. So again, we participate and contribute and have access to the specification and implementation as soon as we can. And I showed some of the features, but again, it's a very feature-rich IPs where we have, by architecture definition, a lot more flexible solution so that we can actually provide a customized solution for our customers. And as a company, we have clear IP focus and worldwide support. We are not selling something else. We are doing IP, and that's our goal. And also for IPs, it's very important to have an ecosystem, have a PHY partnership, have a verification IP partnership. So we have built those around our IP. And of course, all the IPs we have, if they are compliant with the spec, we actually do the certification. So for PCI, we have the PCI 6 certification. And NVMe, we have UNH. Every IP is not just a piece of RTL code we deliver. It's something where we take it. And in case of both the solutions, you can see that there is a full solution which is sort of certified by a third-party standard body. So that's what we do. I think this is the last slide. Thank you. If you have any questions, yeah. Sorry, the first question, what was that?
Is that how often the ECC got triggered? Do you have a log for that?
ECC got triggered. Are you talking about the soft ECC? Yeah, hard ECC will always be there because see the...
There, but do you have a log how exactly did crack the code?
This can be done. I mean...
And then do you have the data, relevant data.
We can generate that, of course. So I am not sure what you mean by the data. Are you saying that the reference platform we have, do we have the data for that?
Right now we have a design and we always populate a lot of the memory for ECC. But if it doesn't work, it's never triggered, we can get rid of the cost.
Oh, no. For Flash, that's not the case. No. Flash, you have to have ECC. So it's different. You can't get rid of ECC. No.
You have the solid data to support this.
Oh, yes. I mean, that's what the Flash characterization platform does. This platform actually does that. So you do a write and then you do multiple times and then you read back. Then you analyze how many bits got sort of flipped. So you know.
Yeah, error is still there.
Of course it is there. That's the biggest problem you have today in Flash. Because as the parts are getting denser and denser, there are more errors per sector. So this is a major problem, yeah.
How difficult would it be to modify your NVMe controller to handle 3D crosspoint memory as opposed to flash memory?
No change.
No change? You could do it right?
As far as NVMe controller, see, yeah. In this diagram, NVMe is in the middle. The Unix is the NVMe controller part. Okay, it doesn't deal with the media itself. The media controller part is not part of the NVMe. So that's why I answered your question. The NVMe controller is not going to change per 3D crosspoint. But of course, the right side, the media control cluster is going to be different. That needs to be changed. So the whole design, you are not supposed to be changing. That's how the modular architecture is all about. So NVMe controller, you don't need to make any change.